NFL draft winners.
Thank God.
Let's talk about the draft winners.
It's supposed to be a draft.
For me, yeah, it was. Then we just started talking about basketball, and then we got wrapped up in it.
Let's do round table. Because there are way more winners than losers.
Yeah.
To me, the first one, we spoke about it. I think I look at the Browns and what they were able to do. Outside of the fact that you got Shador in the 5th round. I know you kind of tainted it just a smidge by drafting Dylan Gabriel too. But trading back, I'm sure Browns fans were scratching their head. Why are you passing on a generational talent? The fact of the assets that you were able to acquire with that. You get Mason Graham, who was the best interior defensive lineman, can arguably be the best defensive player in this draft, unless you want to count Travis Hunter for what he's able to do. The fact that you were able to get Judkins, the fact that you were able to get Sampson, the fact that you were able to get so much depth in this draft, and then on top of it, the draft capital that you secured for the future. You addressed your needs on the offensive side of the ball, and you know your defense is ready. Even still, you drafted Mason Graham because you knew you needed a partner next to Myles Garrett. I thought they did an amazing job. And the last team I want to shout out, and then I'll open it up to you guys, is the Falcons. I know that they... Anytime. The fact that they gave up the first-round pick, that stuck with me, no doubt. However, we've talked about them needing pass rush for seasons now. And you go and you draft Jalen Walker, staying put. I thought that the Panthers were going to be all over that. You stay there where you're at. You were able to get Jalen Walker, who could be a top 3 defensive lineman in this draft, and also with his versatility, I think that's a great asset. You trade up to go and get James Pierce. Some people are extremely high on him. Feel as if he could be a top 2 edge rusher in this draft. He is definitely great at getting to the quarterback. You did what we wanted you to do. You needed some secondary help. You go and you bring in 2 safeties. It makes sense for what their draft strategy was. They went all in and they banked on themselves, and it could pay off as soon as next season.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of the first-round pick that they traded away because they probably wouldn't have gotten Pierce at their spot, but they could have gotten another edge rusher. But if you believe in a player that much and you think it's worth the risk, then that's what they believe. I really like the safety additions. Xavier Watts is a ball hawk, and Billy Bowman Jr. is one of my guys in this draft. I really think he has a chance to be special. He just hits so hard and plays at 100 miles per hour all the time. So I love that shot. And the Browns, they drafted 5 starters. Harold Fannin Jr., I think, could be a starting
Didn't even
tight end.
mention Harold.
Carson Schweichinger, second best tight end in the class. He could start in. JOK has had some problems with concussions recently, so now they have an insurance policy. Mason Graham, best defensive tackle in the draft. And then Shador. Shador, because of the Dylan Gabriel pick, it's been overlooked. But they got a day 2 talent in day 3 of the draft.
And Junkins as well.
Exactly. He could start too. So the Browns had an incredible draft, just rebuilding their team and retooling.
Yeah. Team I'll shout out, New England Patriots. You know, this was a team going into the offseason that needed a lot of help on both sides of the ball.
You have a crush on the Pats.
But they've had a great offseason. Mike Vrabel was probably my favorite head coach available, him and Ben Johnson. But first round, you draft Will Campbell. And I know everyone's comments about Will Campbell is just the short arms, which I get. You know, we really haven't seen someone with his short of arms play at a super high level in the NFL when you go back through all the tackles in NFL history. But he's also a 3-year starter at LSU and was in the 95th percentile of all tackles in PFF true pass sets. So I get the arm length isn't there, but he's doing it in the SEC at one of the biggest schools, and he was able basically every single time to dominate. Second round, they get Travion Henderson. This is a team that desperately needs some offensive firepower. And I think Ramondre, they just extended him last year, even though different regime since Vrabel's kind of running things now. But they need explosiveness, and that's what Henderson does. He is one of 6 Power 4 running backs with 100 carries of at least 10 yards since 2021. He's a guy that's super explosive, and he's one of the best pass protecting backs in college last year. So he'll definitely be the third down back off rip there in New England. Kyle Williams from Washington State was another guy that I was hoping the Jets could potentially snag as a round 3 guy. And I think they might have gotten him if he didn't go like 4 or 5 picks before him, but. He's another kind of deep threat guy, someone that could win over the top. 8.4 yards after the catch per reception, was number 1 amongst all receivers in this 2025 class. I think he was 10th as well in terms of deep catches, 20-plus yards. So an explosive weapon who could also play on the outside because they got a few different guys that could play in the slot, right? Pop Douglas is there, Stephon Diggs. So this is a guy that he's only 6 foot, 190, but he has the versatility to play on both sides. They could be a playoff team. They could be. The last
Bills
guy,
are just better.
the Bills are better. And the last guy is just Jared Wilson, the center from Georgia. Only played 1 year at Georgia, But in that 1 year, he had a 90.5 PFF pass blocking grade on true blocking stats, so similar to Will Campbell. So they're really trying to protect Drake May. I love that they're getting guys, from LSU and from Georgia, from these schools where we know you performed with the highest competition. So yeah, New England I thought did great in free agency, had a great draft as well.
And they're building a culture. I think they really answered a lot of questions on the defensive side of the football in free agency, and then using the draft to go all in on offense, which is probably what you thought the Broncos should have done. Not to throw a jab at them, but the Patriots kind of did what you wanted the Broncos to do.
You're not wrong. I know that I'm kind of jumping the gun here a little bit, but yeah, the Broncos would be one of my losers. And I say this, let me preface all of what I'm going to say with Sean Payton. I trust your direction. You know way better than I do. People doubted you on Bo Nix. Obviously, Bo Nix goes and he validates you in year one. We make the playoffs. That was kind of everything that Broncos fans should just be like, all right, you're driving the boat. We trust everything that you're going to do and where you're going to take us. And I know that the value at 20 with Jahdae Barron, it was exceptional and was one of the better picks of the first round. But there was so much hype with us jumping into the top 10, being ultra aggressive for an offensive player for what it seemed. I think we really wanted Genty, and the Raiders kind of put a thorn in that and then kind of shut down what our plans were going to be. I just thought that there was a little bit there was so much hype coming into this draft for the Broncos. And I like RJ Harvey. I think he has some really strong tools. Bryant as a wide receiver who probably could have gone a few rounds later, you could argue. I just think that the value for where we got both of those guys, that's kind of where I'm at a little bit of a crossroads because we still address needs.
Yeah.
We needed a running back. We needed a wide receiver, and we did that.
It just wasn't the players.
It wasn't Trayvon, who I would have been happy for if we would have been aggressive and traded up. It's not Luther Burden who was available in the second round.
Right process, wrong result.
And again, I trust Sean Payton, but as a fan, I was kind of let down.
And the Will Campbell thing, 4th overall pick, I think he's going to be a really good left tackle for a long time. The arm length, it matters because of leverage points when you're playing. And that's why they measure these things at the combine, because players that have longer arms are more likely to succeed. There's always outliers. But, for example, like for people that are watching on YouTube, if Dell sticks his arm out versus me, and I know you can stick your arm out too, Dell, try to reach towards me. I don't reach him. Obviously, this is an egregious example because I'm much shorter than him. But he reaches me. If you can reach somebody first as an offensive lineman blocking somebody, you can control them and leverage them in different positions. If you have shorter arms and you don't reach them first, they can kind of control you on the rep. So what that means is that Will Campbell has to make up for those arms in technique and just beating players to the spot. And NFL players are really athletic, but that's kind of the hurdle that he has to overcome. And he has really sound technique, which is why I think he will be successful. But that's why the arm length matters, because it's just a leverage battle. If you can get if you could get under somebody's pads first, then you can win that rep.
And I also think the Patriots realized that Henderson wasn't going to be there if they didn't take him at their pick.
Absolutely.
And I thought the obvious selection was going to be Luther Burden. I thought that it was just right there for him. However, when you consider the fact that they did go Kyle Williams in the very next round after that, it was kind of their silver lining of trying to compensate for it. And again, Kyle Williams, we'll see what he becomes, but you know what Vrabel wants to do. He wants to run the ball. He wants a guy that can pass block. And Trayvon Henderson can also be a really great asset in the passing game as well. It makes sense. I get why they did it. I thought Luther would have been the pick there, but you can't be mad with what Trayvon's going to give them.
He's a good compliment to Ramondre.
No doubt.
They're also putting they're putting some pressure on Drake May next year. You want to be competitive. Good. They had a good free agency.
There's no excuse to not take a leap.
No, that's I think they want to. They saw what he did last year towards the end of the year, and it gave them hope, gave them promise. He was a really good player. And, you had a good free agency. You go into the draft. You have a solid draft. You want to compete. And in a division where Miami looks shaky, the Jets are losers, it's really just the Bills.
What do you mean by that? Like draft losers?
Just losers.
No, like you're losers. You lose.
We are a losing franchise, but we did have a great
much you can argue there, man.
You've lost for decades. But I'll say this. They want to remain competitive. They want to compete. As for Cleveland, man, they're a funny team. They're a really funny team. I think with Deshaun Watson being out for next year, you have real opportunity here to build the quarterback. And I think Shedeur Sanders could be that guy for you guys. I said you guys like anybody.
For you.
Here.
You know that the Browns are getting a lot of hate right now?
Yes.
The comments for the Browns, when they post Shedeur Sanders on their Instagram, the comments are all, yeah, you're posting him like he was a first-round pick, but he went 5th. And, you know, they're kind of just being like, oh, you know.
Assholes about it.
Yeah, y'all don't deserve him. Y'all don't this. Y'all don't that.
I mean, listen, you got Junkins, Nick Chubb. You don't know what you're going to get from him at this point.
I think he is a free agent.
Yeah,
he made Jerome Ford, though.
He probably won't come back. You know, unfortunate. That's really my brother. Still my brother. Hope he finds a home. You drafted Junkins. You have Shedeur. You got Dylan Gabriel. Okay. So you have like a cool little quarterback room filled with vets. Kenny Pickett and Deshaun Watson. So we'll see how that goes. But Cleveland got a good price back for trading down a little bit and still getting able to get a top prospect. He may not be Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter or Cam Ward if you put him in that tier, but he's still a tick below and still a really great prospect that can be a really good player. Plus, now you add some much needed help to a guy like Myles Garrett, who's going to stay on that team, you know, help that defense who's kind of been at the forefront of this team for the past couple years.
I had a lot of winners in this draft. You guys mentioned some of them. The Chiefs, I really thought had an A+ draft.
You gave that 7th round running back an A+. Damn.
For the pick, absolutely. I love the Chiefs draft. Josh Simmons, I believe, is the most athletically gifted left tackle in this draft, and he was going to be the first offensive tackle taken had he not torn his ACL. I just think he's a very fluid mover, and I think the Chiefs found their franchise left tackle if he could stay healthy. Omar Norman-Lott, he led every single interior defensive lineman in pressure rate. But his knock was that he was a rotational pass rusher. He only played 17 snaps a game. So the Chiefs are kind of betting that he can be more of a 3-down player. But it does make their pass rush better on 3rd downs anyway.
Yeah, but also 2nd round pick if he's just a great rotational pass rusher.
Exactly.
That's a win.
Yeah.
Ashton Gillotte was my favorite pick of the Chiefs that they made. I think Ashton Gillotte was a steal in the 3rd round. He's 2nd in pressures over the last 2 seasons in college football since 2023. I thought that was really amazing. And then the running back you're talking about, Brashard Smith. I mean, it wasn't too long ago, Isaiah Pacheco was a 7th round pick, and they got him in the 7th round. Brashard Smith has some real speed. He's a converted wide receiver. He doesn't have feel for playing a running back position, but he's very fast. He had the 4th most all-purpose yards this year, and he's a returner too. So in the 7th round, if you can get a receiving back or a punt and kick returner, I think that's excellent value. And their corner, they got Noah Williams. He can start. He's one of the best tacklers in this draft. He only allowed a 41% completion percentage, and he had a 41 pass rate when he was targeted. He's a ball hawk. He had the most interceptions this past year. So I think the Chiefs had an A+ in this draft. The other teams I had, the Seahawks, almost every pick they made I thought was a slam dunk.
And great value.
Yeah, Gray Zabel, 1st round pick, starter at guard day 1.
Good pick.
Nick Emenwari is a project. You bet on his athletic tools. He's a 99%
I like him with Mike McDonald.
I was going to say,
Yes.
That's a fun spot.
Love the location he went
couldn't
to.
cover in college. He got lost. But if you're just telling him to read and react in the run game and tackle, I think that's where he can be at his best, at least early on. Elijah Arroyo, he was one of my draft crushes at tight end. Mm-hmm. He's just a really good receiving threat, and now you just add more weapons to the offense. Jalen Milroe, betting on upside. He has all the tools. You bet on the upside, and if he becomes something, sure.
You like Jalen Milroe?
I really do like Jalen Milroe.
Why you don't like Jalen Hurts?
What the?
What do you mean by that?
You like Jalen Milroe? Why don't you like Jalen Hurts?
I think Jalen Milroe is a more exciting runner.
He is. I mean, he's a 4'3", 4'4", 40 guy.
I don't know. You think Jalen Milroe ever have a 40+ yard touchdown in the playoffs?
Who knows if he ever
Start.
Okay, I'm just asking.
Jalen Milroe is a much better athlete than Hurts.
Is he a better prospect?
No. Jalen Milroe just is basically Anthony Richardson in the
I would say physical
3rd, 4th
tools.
round.
He's just got more physical
Did you guys
tools.
see the clip of
lot of
the
guys has
reporter
physical
going
tools.
to the GM and McDonald saying, yeah, Milroe came up to us and said that you said that he was the number 1 quarterback on your guys' board. And he's like,
I respect him not lying.
Yeah, he said no, he wasn't. No, but Milroe, I think they really liked him because he's coachable and he's just willing to listen and do what they say to get better.
Bama.
He was, he has to refine a lot of things about his game, but the arm talent that he has,
That wide receiver saved his bacon
it's
a lot.
worth it. Taking it in the 4th round, I think is where they selected him. That's worth it. You take him in the 4th, or I think it's in the 3rd, one of those
I
rounds.
think it was the 3rd, yeah.
Torrey Horton, 6'3" wide receiver out of Colorado State, who runs a 4.4.
If he didn't get hurt, he probably would have gone higher.
Yeah, I thought that was a great pick. And Damian Martinez, the running back, who I think could be a rotational running back. So their draft was also pretty amazing.
The other team I'll shout out is New York Giants. I thought the Giants had a really good draft. Of course, we know how great Abdul Carter is going to be. That's going to be one of the best defensive lines in the NFL. Jackson Dart is, I think, the only pick I'm looking at. Like, I don't know how this is going to work out because, again, it's a quarterback, and just historically, quarterbacks that go in like the late first round or teams that trade up for a quarterback that are looked at as like day 2 picks but end up being first round picks usually don't work out.
Lamar.
But yeah, there's some that do. Not a lot. There's some that do.
Who knows?
But I think he went to a good spot just because he's going to be sitting probably for a year. And then you do have Brian Daboll, if he retains his job, which the Giants will probably have to win 8 or 9 games. He's a good offensive-minded head coach. He's a good play caller. He's a good schemer. So I think it's a good spot for Jackson Dart. But some of the other values they got, I thought Cam Scatterbo in the 4th round, he was someone that I know was on a lot of people's big boards in terms of day 3 running backs that snuck through after the 3rd round. But he's a great compliment to Tyrone Tracy. You have Cam for first and second down. I like Tracy, but I always saw him more as like a 3rd down running back who's going to get more work in the receiving game. So add another weapon to that offense. They got a couple guys in the offensive and defensive line. Embo, I don't know exactly how you pronounce it.
On offensive line. He
was consensus like round 3 guy that they got in round 5 that could potentially be a starter day 1. So I thought the Giants did a really good job.
Yeah, I thought they had an amazing draft. That defensive line looks really good now with Dexter Lawrence and Abdul Carter and Brian Burns and Darius Alexander, who a lot of people are high on. So I like what they did. I like what the Panthers did, getting Ted McMillan and Nick Scorton in the 2nd round.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was really good. I know you mentioned this in the pre-recorded content, but the Cardinals just going all defense, and Will Johnson was arguably the steal of the draft, getting him in the 2nd.
Yeah.
Getting Walter Nolan and Will Johnson, those are 2 round 1 guys.
Unless you count Shador in the 5th.
That is a great value.
Shador in the 5th is insane.
I think sorry, go ahead, Riff.
Thank you. Yeah, I had 3 winners. I'm just looking at Arizona, team that I'm really high on. You know, me and Drew, we go way back with Arizona. Our love is different. They went 8-9 last year. Finished 3rd in the NFC West.
They blew it.
Missed the playoffs, like you mentioned. Blew it. Had an opportunity to definitely be at the hunt.
Crushed it.
End of the year. Brutal. I want to say towards the end, middle to towards the end stretch where they
to Seattle.
Lost both Seattle games. They went. I think they lost like their last 3 of their last 6 or 5 or something like that.
Yeah, they collapsed.
Free agents. They didn't have many key free agents. Like for the most part, everybody's coming back. And like you mentioned, Joel, you know, a team that went all defense. They drafted 1 offensive player, and it was a guard from Texas. But for the most part, Hayden Connor. For the most part, they went Walter Nolan, defensive tackle. Will Johnson, like you just mentioned. Cornerback, Jordan Birch, edge. Cody Simmons, linebacker. Denzel Burke, which I really do love, but he was getting a little chopped up at Ohio State sometimes.
Cody Simon's from Ohio State too, and that was a good pick.
Yeah, they all played on the championship team. This is a team that went all defense. This is a team that understood their failures last year or their lack of talent on the defensive side, whether it be just not youth, not enough veterans. And for a team that went 8-9, they still, to me, feel like a team that's trending in the right direction, making the proper moves. I mean, Jordan Birch is a guy who has a lot of versatility on the line, so I think that's important for them. But, you know, Arizona just keeps trending in the right way. They still have Marvin Harris Jr., Kyler Murray on the offensive side. So they're going to be solid on that route as long as they continue to, you know, upgrade at that end. And then, of course, Howie Roseman, man. This guy just never loses. I mean, Jahad Campbell, Andrew Makuba, if I said it right, Ty Robinson. I mean, this team just keeps adding on youth, and you're adding Jahad Campbell to a linebacking crew of Zach Bond, of Nakobe Dean, who's probably going to miss a little bit of the season.
Might miss the whole season.
Might, and that's why you drafted Jahad Campbell. Definitely. You need to fill in that void, and we saw what this team did to Zach Bond in a year. Turned it into a flat-out superstar. And then in the secondary, you know, you lost Darius Slay, but you're bringing in Andrew Makuba. You already have those guys filling in with Cooper.
Johnson
CJ, they did lose, which was unfortunate, but I feel like you can replace him high key.
Makuba, that's the replacement.
Exactly,
right there.
And you still have Reed Blankenship, you still have Cooper. They still believe in Ringo, so we'll see how that goes. Then of course you got Guantanamo Bay, so you can't forget that. And then my third winner, it's going to be my sleeper team, the Carolina Panthers, baby. This team is going to shock the fucking world. And I may not be the biggest Bryce Young fan. I'll save that for him.
I'll be honest, Riv, let me just say this right now. Hop aboard.
I can't because I am a CJ Stroud fan. But what I will say is, Drew, I won't root against him. I will be rooting
I'm going to be really honest with you, bro. He's going to be a dog.
And he's going to be elite. Not only is he going to be elite, he's bringing in some help with him. I mean, he went out there, he got Tet. Then they went out there, they went defense with Nick and Princely edges from Texas A&M, Mississippi State. They went and they got an ETN brother, which we all know ETN brothers are at minimum really good.
And apparently Hunter Renfrow, he's making a comeback.
He did.
He's on
and
the Panthers.
I watched a lot of Colorado games. Jimmy Horns Jr.
He's good.
He's good.
He's good.
Like him falling in
his hands are shaky, aren't they?
So was Jamar Chase. I say
practices.
So is CD Lamb. I say that to say potential's there.
You're nuts.
I like Jimmy Horns
in the 6th round. You take it.
Yeah, I like it. Listen,
value there.
like Xavier Legette had hands problems last year. You know,
he's a problem. Period.
Yeah, he dropped some passes.
I don't know.
So they don't have much out there. Adam Thielen was out there.
Shout out to the Cokeheads.
Yeah, so
the stock went down.
I like it.
A little bit.
Carolina got an A for me.
Coker, Legette, McMillan. You could build off that.
You could talk yourself into it. Like, all right, this is solid.
I think Legette is bad.
I don't think he's bad. He just wasn't good.
I don't think he's bad either. Chuba Hubbard is still out there too.
You know who else can get open? I'll leave it at that.
Oh fuck.
Legette has some serious speed. That threatens defenses.
He's a great athlete.
He's like that, man. Listen, I think Carolina's offense is going to be better. I think they'll win the division. They're a really good team.
The only other team I had as a winner, Baltimore Ravens.
I was going to say, how haven't we talked about them?
Yeah, I think you can make the argument. The fact that they picked at, 27, 28, and you have... I think you can look at every team in the NFL and what team is going to get the most impact from their first 2 picks. I think the Ravens going to be up there with everybody. Malachi Starks in the first round. He fell because I don't think he's not this great athlete, right? He's not like 6'4", 230 and runs a 4.3 40, but he was a day one starter for 3 years at Georgia, I should say. He was someone he's a great tackler, great IQ. He makes good decisions. He's not someone that is going to blow you away athletically, but he's more than athletic enough to be able to cover. He could play free safety, strong, nickel, a lot of versatility, which opens up just other things for Kyle Hamilton, who's your true, all-pro guy you have on the back end there. And then Mike Green, he has the off-the-field stuff that's definitely concerning.
That probably took him off a lot of teams'
Absolutely, but we talked about this previously. When you have certain allegations against you or certain issues, what team you go to matters a lot. Because if you go to a team that has a winning culture, has leadership at head coaching, leadership on defense, like Jalen Carter and the Eagles, I think there's paths for you to succeed. Jalen Carter went to the damn Jaguars.
Michael Vick
no disrespect to the Jaguars, but I don't know if they would have worked out. So I think Mike Green landed in a great spot. And he's one of the best pass rushers in this draft class. So those 2 picks, that Ravens defense got a lot better.